The story begins with the fact that one of the guys suddenly made a fatal mistake, because of which he could soon get an unusual, ugly, but still very useful ability. This guy had the idea to do one really cool, twisting ball shot. He made a throw straight at the student who was standing nearby and didn't understand why someone would do such a thing. The kid thought he should ask the guys if they had seen him hit that jerk right in the bullseye. Someone answered that he recognized it. He deserved 1 point for that, and besides, that jerk can't even catch the ball. The girl turned to the guy, asking him what the hell was going on with them in the first place. What are they even allowing themselves to do? Is this fun? The girl was talking about how that guy can't even counter anything to those guys. The young man approached the girl and wanted to give her the ball, but the girl, in turn, was surprised, not understanding why she wanted the ball. Afterward, she was shocked that he gave her the ball after all, and she just held it, not sure what to do with it. The kid who was sitting at his phone watching only remarked that that guy gets beat up every day, and he still stands in one place like an idiot. At some point, someone did pick up the ball again and just launched it at the guy. The next thing you know, this young man was afraid of what was going on, and the kid kept talking about how if it were him, he would have fought back against these guys, even if it was shameful to do so. The guy shouted, "Hey, get Sheen off to stand in place, see? Fucking hell. If he doesn't catch the ball when it's pitched, he'll kill him," he kept saying and laughing. This little guy was really scared and didn't know what to do now. The kid took a good swing and threw the ball right at him. The girl screamed and couldn't understand what was about to happen. She thought about what she should do to help this guy. At the same moment, the kid looked back and saw the ball flying right at him. It was all about the boy learning how to defend himself with his elbows, and that prevented the guy from beating him because of a particular ricochet. It went right into the guy who was discussing it. The ball then landed on the ground and just waited for someone to pick it up. The guys were laughing from the incident, talking about how crazy it was to double kill because of the block. What the hell? Isn't that supposed to double the points at all? They wondered. The girl reprimanded the jerk, talking about how he had completely lost his mind. Can't he see that this is how they got into the man in the first place? At the same moment, he was just standing there thinking about what the hell. That was painful enough. Like suddenly, those guys were also talking about how they understood her, the head man, and if only Jin would have stayed put, there would have been no way around it. The kid suddenly jumped right out from behind his desk and thought it was worth asking which of these freaks had even done it. They all looked closely at their classmate and couldn't understand why he was suddenly so boiling. The same kid who just stood there and watched it couldn't think that someone would dare to yell at him like that. The boy took a closer look and suddenly wondered who he had raised his hand at, for he didn't know who it was for sure. The boy was talking about how it was him and he was ashamed of it, and then he thought he should ask, "Right, Gene?" To which he replied, "Yes, of course." The kid apologized to him, saying that he really didn't do it out of spite, and also apologizes. So, can he pitch the ball to him? The kid just stared at him and couldn't understand what kind of weird feeling he was getting right now, as if behind this guy's back, those other guys would pounce on him as soon as he let them. The kid was a little surprised, but still realized that he was doing it for nothing, because no matter how he did it, he probably really wasn't doing it on purpose. He asked him to give him the ball, questioningly, saying that the ball he, the asshole, should give him actually if he remembered. The kid thought about walking around the classroom a little bit and getting the damn ball. But he said that if he pissed him off, he'd be fucked at some point, because he didn't mean it. And he'd get it, dumbass. The young man picked up this ball and realized he was going to be a little uncomfortable right now. The girl looked closely at the guy and couldn't figure out what was even going on with him. Was he really a little hurt? The boy turned around with the ball and suddenly looked closer. Gino's in a lot of trouble, you see. He's a real loser, and he can't fight back. The kid thought to speak up, saying it wasn't because of Gene's pitiful look. It's also not for the sake of showing off in front of the headman. He's going to do something important. Because it's really quite simple. Since he just had a pimple burst, the reason is so self-serving, of course, but it was necessary to give that asshole some heat. The boy looked at the whole circumstance and realized that right now he was going to have to sweat to get rid of these guys. Also, importantly, he admitted that that degenerate is a fucking asshole and he pisses him off a lot. Two people saw fit to run up to him and say, "Hey, what the hell is he doing, you fucking asshole?" This same guy who got hurt by the ball just to stop the guys realized what he had just done. It was too brazen of him to do such a thing. So after thinking about it for a bit, the kid decided to do the whole thing himself and attack the guy, telling him that he will still regret it and also let him get what he deserves for what he did. At the same moment, the kid was just watching this and realizing that apparently he wasn't going to feel as good now as he had imagined before. Instantly after such a blow, he simply flew out, not realizing how just now this had even happened. Also, after this incident, the boy realized that now he will definitely be able to know on himself. A survival technique that he was able to earn for a fairly short time. Oh, and to top it off, importantly, punching bags, errand boy, and double cow taking money away is what it could have been like. Soon in one of the offices, in fact, there was something special in that office, like a blob or a slug, or even more simply, scientifically, a physarum polygonum. Most notably, this unique slug has a bunch of notable features. Also, the teacher, in speaking about this substance, said that it is a kind of entity. It is capable of digestion without having internal organs, and of memorization without having a brain, and when cut, it shows regenerative abilities. And as for joining previously separated organisms, they share their perceptions with each other. While the teacher was telling all this to the kids, all of a sudden a kid said something about having this kid check Messenger, please. The boy did check it out after all and opened that message to take a closer look and see what was so interesting. He was able to spot a note of some sort, and also the guys were writing about how here comes the second errand boy. They were laughing about how unfortunate it was that it was off-center. The young man immediately thought about trying to get this stuff and realized that, geez, it wasn't funny at all. Like immediately, the guy who was in charge, who was being bullied by the guys, suddenly wondered what was even going on. While the teacher was even telling the whole class about single-celled organisms learning intelligence, all the other kids who were making fun of the guy just laughed and talked about how funny it was. On that piece of paper it said, "Let's be friends," and also to end with a smile. He took a closer look at the situation and realized that it was unfunny enough and that they weren't thinking about it at all. Also, the teacher was not paying attention to all the mischief and teasing of the student. He talked about how the fact that this mysterious creature was finally being exhibited in the National Zoo was important. It was already evening on one of the excellent playgrounds. That sticker was just about right, and now they really wanted to hang out with him. The kid finally did go behind one of the unexpectedly common playground spots. He thought it would be a good idea to have a smoke. The young man also thought it was worth asking the guy if he would even have a cigarette. As the man looked at it and realized that, and no, he didn't want to smoke. The guys stood in the same spot without a care and just relaxed, but that kid didn't feel like he was even needed in that company. The boy who had finished his cigarette turned to our protagonist, whose name was Lighter. He asked, he was really curious, so here's asking up front. The guy thought it would be right to walk right up to him and ask him something, talking about why he threw the ball at him then. He was just asking him, talking about how he was just suddenly very curious about it, how his friends had said to let him keep to himself, and also whether he would faint after something like that. The kid sat in one spot and said, "Okay." He was calm for the whole time because he was waiting for the right moment. "Right?" asked the guys. But they in turn were only a little disturbed by this. Someone said, "Let them all be quiet for a while." He wanted to hear what the guy had to say in response while Loser Gene ran to the guys. Lighter turned to the guy and told him that a ball had hit him in the face, causing his zit to burst. He didn't know what had gotten into him. But either way, he was sorry for that incident, as he wouldn't want to hurt anyone for no particular reason. The kid couldn't stand that excuse and punched the asshole so he'd remember the punch well. While Lightyear was in pain, he wondered why he had even thought of such a thing. That one immediately said okay. They'd only agreed on the fact that his teeth were chattering. The guys were talking about how he didn't really feel sorry for him. That pimple. What kind of excuse is that?" the kids said as they discussed it, and Lighter stood still, not understanding why he would do that. The boy suddenly noticed that the weakling had finally arrived. He's here now, and they're as good as dead without him. He thought about hitting the guy, asking him what he was waiting for, and have him hand over the goods sooner rather than later. The guy asked why he had hit him in the first place. The guy thought to hold the guy by the hair and also ask Gene if he had done what he asked him to do. The man replied that yes, he had done everything he had asked. The boy said to him, "Let him stand still." "How hard can it be?" The boy thought of the strange thing that was in the jar. The one took it and laughed, saying, "Wow, that one did pretty good." The young man said that he had brought only a little, so that they would not be caught just in case. And the man replied that it was expected of their djinn, thanking him very much, for it was even more than he had thought. Kryman was talking about how he's observed this thing before. It's so cool, actually. He can't tell if it's an animal or a plant, but it doesn't really matter. The guy asked what they were going to do with her, keep her as a pet or something. Suddenly, the boy suggested that, come on, she's useless. Just in case, let him take her out for a walk or something. The boy told the boys that he too was curious to see what would happen. This guy was wondering if the thing would come out if he ate it or not. This particular jar of this stuff was very unusually developed. The guys thought it would be an interesting time, so they decided to move farther away. Some of them were filming so they could watch it again later. He told those two guys that they could do it however they wanted, but whoever drank that glass down to the bottom first, he would no longer use as an errand boy. Hey, you have to do it this way, he thought. Shit, he'd never been forced to do that before. But anyway, it would be awesome, because he'd bet all his money on Gene. Right now, they both prepared themselves and realized that their future fate might depend on it. Leiter realized how humiliating it was to feel like a toy. It's just disgusting. He took a closer look at Gene, though, and realized he was determined, as if he was used to situations like this by now. The boy realized that, okay, let the man drink just that stuff and that would be the end of it. And the young man said he wasn't ready at all. Maybe he should beat him up before the start to get him a little excited. To which Leiter replied, to forgive him, he didn't hear him. They all laughed and said, okay, about 3, they're starting. So the most important thing right now is to pay attention. And with that, the kid immediately shouted out, all right, march. While Leiter was pondering for a bit, suddenly Jin immediately started forward very quickly. He was even a little surprised at how he ran at all, since he usually never ran that fast. So I thought I'd do a little trick to make him realize it wouldn't be that easy. He pushed him right back on the crate, causing Gene to even be a little surprised at Lightyear's action. Simon laughed really hard and realized it was just adorable. It was so cool. The kid ran right by this cup and accidentally dropped it. He ran up to one of them and realized that now he was going to have to try his best to make one of them regret what he had even done. The young man looked closer and realized that the man had suddenly swung. But why? Not yet. Maybe you shouldn't. Leiter thought he'd give Simon a good punch. He flew right off, and all the other guys were just shocked by it. The kid looked at it all and realized that it might seem weird to him now, but he really enjoyed hitting someone so well. From the pain, Simon realized that it was already too good to be true. And also answered, okay, let's have them be friends in just this kind of relationship. The boy had forgotten that he'd actually been so angry with him for a long time. But he couldn't understand why he hadn't realized his place. The guy's friend immediately jumped on him, telling him that he had to answer for his actions immediately. Then he asked him if he was crazy. At the same moment, someone decided it was worth taking him by the scruff of the neck and punishing him properly. Simon got up off the ground and thought it was worth it now to punish the asshole for what he'd done in the first place, and immediately punched Lightyear in the stomach to make him realize just how unpleasant it could be to get hurt. The one immediately realized that, hell, it was indeed incredibly painful. The kid took a closer look at him and called him a jerk, since he'd dared to go off on him for no drastic reason after all. The guys fell to the ground, not realizing what was going on. Some of them realized that he was getting too cocky. Then Simon said to him, those are his own hands, asshole. Since he doesn't understand, he'll explain it to him with his fists. Also, why doesn't he just say he wants to fade into the place? The guys were watching this, and all of a sudden, the kid said that's a good job. To which someone responded that the asshole actually has balls of steel. The kid turned to Gene, saying he'd hit him, right? But he wasn't thinking straight, to which the latter replied that he was just a bit clumsy about it, that's all. At one moment, the young man called that Jin over to him. He was suddenly very much afraid of it. The kid knocked that guy out and told him to go get what fell out of the glass right away. The guy immediately ran up to this guy and just said, okay, he'll pick it up. The guys were saying, oh shit, let him watch that asshole run. He hasn't changed a bit since he started. In a quiet voice, the young man turned to Simon and said that here, he had just brought this. The one immediately grabbed the thing right out of his hands, after which he immediately held the thing right up to the guy's nose so he could feel just how fucked up the thing was. He also told Lightyear to eat it immediately. Either he does it himself, or he'll knock his teeth out and force the stuff down his throat. The boy looked at it and thought that this might be his last chance. He didn't know what to do, looking at this stuff and realizing it was probably edible, but didn't know for sure. All the guys looked at it and just said he was really going to feed that thing to him. That's disgusting. That's just disgusting. The guys went on to say that Simon is actually a pretty amazing person. He told the guy that if he in turn spit the thing out, he would die on the spot. The guy tried to eat it and realized what the hell. He had just done something he didn't even know himself. After that incident, Simon immediately calmed down and realized that he had followed his orders. It wasn't so bad, but he was still pissed off about the guy. Taking him by the hair, he also said, "Oh shit, asshole." He kept thinking, even when he was silent. Even without looking at it, he still pisses the hell out of him, no matter how you look at it. The boy almost passes out and realizes that this is just some kind of capets. There's nothing he can do about it. Soon things calmed down and quieted down a bit. Simon thought about saying he was a fucking asshole for making him angry. It wasn't a good thing at all. Also, importantly, that complete idiot may not be as helpful as he thinks he is. So I told all the other guys that, okay, they're going to go, and I left that asshole right where he was. One of them said they're going to walk away and leave that asshole like that. Somebody thought to say, that idiot doesn't seem to be moving at all. The guy took notice and asked his friends what they even cared about him. He also said they were all pussies because people don't die that easily. And of course, no matter what, let him drive his dough back. To which the two said that he also made him eat that misery in the first place. To which the latter replied, fucking fly, just shut up and give him his money back. The guy talked to them and also said that he wasn't in the mood and he just needed money, that's all. As those took notice and realized that apparently it wasn't going to be that easy all the way around. The young man stood still and couldn't understand what they were staring at. Was there something wrong with him? Leiter suddenly wanted to turn around and wondered if that guy was even immortal or something. From the moment the boys saw him, they were greatly surprised. Leiter was on his feet and bleeding quite a bit, though he didn't give a shit. He just stood there and looked at those people, realizing that those guys were actually kind of weird since they could stand their ground so easily. The kid took a closer look and realized that, damn it, he was really alive, and that wasn't a bad thing. Apparently, he'd asked the guys correctly, but they were only slightly alarmed by it. Someone was now holding a rebar, realizing that apparently he hadn't beaten him enough to keep him on his feet. As soon as the boy stood up, he thought it would be worth it to stretch his bones a bit and attack this stupid and dumb asshole directly. The guy stood and watched this, not realizing what the guy was even doing. Taking a closer look, he realized it was worth clarifying something. Did this guy really dare to attack him? Leiter started walking up to the freaks as fast as he could, thinking it was worth punishing him for doing this in the first place. The young man in turn would not just stand there and talk about how he was a stupid pretender. It's been quite some time since that rather interesting fight. The boy was able to get home, and the first thing he wanted to do was try to get something to drink. It was the genie who was actually quite calm about it. The guy realized that his life was rather clumsy and fickle. He picked up the phone in his hands and walked straight to his room. He also watched videos that explained what it even was. It moved quite fast and didn't have the best control, as if some microbe had invaded the organic creature. The boy sat up straight on the bed, thinking about what had even happened today. He only thought back to today, not realizing that Leiter was actually pretty cool today. Still, he was able to take something important from this battle. The boy started to open the pencil case, realizing that there must be something important in there. He was able to find that there was still some of that stuff he was able to take from the lab after all. Taking a closer look at her, he realized she looked pretty cool. Oh, and besides, she straight up looks like a beautiful pet. Weird a bit in appearance, but unusual. At this point, it was one little ladybug. All this time after that fight, the kid continued to lie on the ground, realizing that he was really hurt after that fight. The boy realized that he should finally get up if he wanted to get home early. He also took his cell phone out of his pocket. The young man considered answering whoever was there calling him. It was just the head girl asking the guy if he'd seen how many times she'd called him and also wanting to know why he'd missed school this afternoon. The kid stood up after all and thought about going home. He replied that it was none of her damn business, and he just wanted a little break from everyone. The girl realized that he must be crazy to say such a thing. Had he not heard what she had just said? The girl thought to turn to Lightyear and ask him what was wrong with him in general. She was talking about how he hadn't done anything in that time, right? The boy turned to her and said not at all. And why was she prying at him in the first place? The headmistress replied that she was worried about him because she was his headmistress. If he thinks that, he's an idiot, really. A bus was starting to pull up to the girl, so she thought she should tell her that they would see each other at school tomorrow, and then they could talk normally. She told the guy she was going to hang up now. Leiter looked at his reflection and wondered what had happened in the meantime. He looked at his own image and realized that this was all somehow very strange, and what had happened to him was not good at all. The girl stood on the bus, waiting for her to finally get home so she could lie down to rest from this most boring school day. Meanwhile, the boy was simply shocked by what he had just seen in his own reflection. Not exactly himself, but rather some kind of monster. Leiter was scared, of course, but still realized that he needed to maintain self-control and try to do something to fix things. So he thought to take another look at his own reflection to make sure he wasn't imagining things. But after a closer look, he realized that he didn't understand anything. What had happened to him? After all, he was able to make sure his face looked completely different than it had originally. It's very strange. The kid was shocked by the fact that, gosh, how badly these guys had beaten him up. Meanwhile, the next morning had finally arrived. All the kids in the class were sitting peacefully in their seats, wondering what was going on in their class at all. It all sounded ridiculous enough, but it was still a strange day. Jin was also able to notice that the boy was absent today for some reason. The headmistress noticed it too and thought it was strange, since they had agreed that he would be at school today. The boy thought it was probably the aftermath after he was beaten up, and that's why he didn't show up at school. Meanwhile, in an apartment in one of the buildings, Leiter's mom yelled at him to open the door immediately. And besides, if he didn't open the damn door, she'd kick it down. The kid panicked and said he was still asleep, so don't let it bother him. The girl thought it was worth asking the boy why he wasn't going to school at all. Had something happened? The boy immediately told her that today was the anniversary of the school's opening, so there would be no need to go today. As suddenly at this moment, he could find that this thing he had eaten suddenly started to come out. He tried to hide her, to shut her out, to make her realize she shouldn't be going anywhere at all. The boy suddenly realized, come on, it just can't be! His mother told him to eat and stop watching weird stuff because it was getting weird. And also she would be here soon. Let him wake up for her, please, she asked him. The one only realized that, okay, he would listen to her after all. Suddenly, the guy realized, that's it. Damn it, he couldn't just tell her that. After all, he just can't let everyone else see his appearance. After all, he's in no condition to be ogled. After calming down a bit, he suddenly started thinking about how he would control this thing. He also began to remember that the thing was indeed unusual and clearly alive. The kid told him, let him eat either siesta or I'll knock his teeth out and shove that shit in his mouth myself. That's exactly what happened then. And for some reason, it made the boy feel a little sick. The young man, when he remembered this, realized that it was because of this act that his life would never be the same again. And now he was the very real freak that this thing was coming out of. Even still, though, he suddenly still didn't understand what good it would do if he didn't know the cause of this thing. And where did it even come from? He didn't know that scientists literally had such strange organisms too. And besides, it's all over the room. The kid was beginning to suspect that beating it wasn't going to help him anyway. Only his personal feeling and something like that would help him under such a circumstance. The boy tried to talk himself out of such a state, screaming about how he couldn't be, because none of this would help him become normal. How suddenly at the same moment, this thing, which was a rather strange organism, all this stuff started to slide right back into the guy. He didn't realize it was even happening, though. But really, he realized that this process is not because of the most interesting and even strange things. It also made him feel uncomfortable to feel this sort of thing. As soon as the whole thing slid back into him, he even blacked out a little, not realizing what it even was. So right after that, he just dropped to the floor and thought about what was even going on and how he could get rid of it. It's been quite some time since that incident. Meanwhile, the boys sat in class and reminisced about that day yesterday, because it was just a short time ago. They also thought of giving one really cute thing to their friend. They talked about the surprise he put it in the closet and forgot about it. The boy asked if this was not the bread he had bought a month ago. Suddenly, the boy also realized, would he really have to eat it? The kid said, you want him to let him eat it, right? As a friend, he realized, okay, he has another thought, and it's much more interesting. Simon suggested to the guy that he feed it to Lightyear's jerk. The girl turned to the guy and told him what he would do if he went to the hospital. In fact, wouldn't he open up at the station for it? The girl also told him not to think it would happen at all. While the boy was just holding the bun itself, someone suddenly turned to him. The kid paid attention to that voice and suddenly still said something back to her. He told her, if she doesn't want to receive it, then let her shut up immediately. Or does she want to taste this wonderful, appetizing meal that has been in the pantry for a month? The two girls were very much frightened by what Simon had just suggested, so they were a bit at a loss as to what to do. Afterwards, they said that she was not eager to do such a thing. Afterwards, they said it was just outrageous. And besides, why do you have to come to them with your stupid advice? Simon turned to Jean and asked the latter if he could do it at all. After that, I thought I should give him that stale sandwich to deal with after all. Meanwhile, Leiter was trying to get to school as quickly as possible and also said into the phone that yes, he would be there soon. Yeah, because he's almost there. He's also late because he's a little sick, that's all. His girlfriend was just asking if he went to the hospital. Well, in that case, the teacher told him to provide a certificate if he had done such a thing. The boy replied that he didn't have time to go. He would go after school. And don't let it make him angry with such questions, because he will have to take tests, damn it. In fact, he was already contemplating the idea of going to the lab first and finding out if it was definitely Invic's slime at all. The girl turned to the guy, saying that at any rate, if he wanted to write the final exam, he would have to rush to school as soon as possible. The boy answered her, "Oh my God, how low of her." He had already said he was almost dying, and she in turn was thinking about some exams. As suddenly as he could notice the thing moving, he thought about the fact that if this thing was allowed to share, that there was something wrong with him. Also, he's not really in the mood to study yet, right? While the thing was growing on the guy's body, the girl asked him if his mom knew that he wasn't in school at all yesterday. Also, importantly, he was talking about being late today, right? While all this was going on, the boy could see that the thing was starting to turn black as it traveled farther away from his body. While the girl was talking about it, the boy was looking at it and thinking, "Holy crap, this just looks awful, really." He realized, what a fucking hand. And actually, what was wrong with him this time, he couldn't understand either. The girl had been listening the whole time and couldn't understand what that guy was even doing, and what he had going on there also couldn't realize. Meanwhile, the guys started beating up Jean as they realized he was useless at all. The girl walked over to the classroom and looked at the whole thing, not realizing what was going on. And she could also see that he was coming at her now, Jin? Like immediately the girl was hit by this very guy. One of those ragamuffin guys who just wants to bully the weak. Afterward, the kid immediately came over and said to the guy, "He's a jerk, if you look at it that way." He also asked him if he really wanted to die for doing such a thing. The guy was hitting Jean as fast as he could and telling him, "Who the hell does he think he is? Did he really think he could say a free word? Was he the weak one?" The kid kept bashing and saying that, yeah, they're all assholes here. Frankly, totally fucked up that they just don't do anything. Simon looked at all this and just laughed, for it was quite funny, as his friend had also said. With this fool, he had something oaky to collapse, which is an immediate attack. The boy turned to the boy and asked, "Did he see it at all, their sweet Jean? Was he thinking of doing free speech after all?" Just as the boy was laughing, someone thought to stop all this madness, and the girl thought to tell the boy. The headmistress was asking the guy about what he'd even done. And anyway, they've been bugging him on and on all this time, right? She also thought of asking the boy if it would be best for her to tell the teacher about the situation. The boy paid attention to her and said, "What a chicken, pissing him off already." How immediately he took her by the shoulder and thought about throwing her farther back against the wall, telling her to back off and they'd figure it out for themselves. Plus, let them talk to each other as equals. But the boy from this moment realized that there were no equals here at all. The kid was telling him that this was between him and Jerk Jean, so let her keep him from talking to him man to man. At this same moment, the little brother was standing in the courtyard thinking about what he should do now. He also realized that the trembling in his hand hadn't stopped until now, and it scared him a little. Walking a little further, he also realized something important. And what he'll know for sure is the kid Simon is going to bully him again, so he'll have to get revenge on that guy no matter what. In fact, the most famous guy in the neighborhood since middle school is this very guy. And it's also rumored that one guy was beaten up after entering high school just because he was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. And of course, maybe he got tired of being bullied forever. So one day, he decided to end it once and for all. And after school, he applied to the juvenile detention center. It was obvious that it was going to happen the way it had to date. The kid got into a fight with two older guys and no one else dared to mess with him. Suddenly, he had that feeling again. He realized that the curse had returned and he hated school again. Guy began to realize that soldiers returning from their first tour of duty leave felt the same way. He decided to pay attention to one guy and tell him something. Asked him if he wanted to be fed this beautiful dish. Suddenly, the kid told him that since Shins had gotten the flu, he would have to sit in his place. In a nutshell, it was his turn to taste this wonderful dish. He stood still, very much disturbed by what he was about to do. The boy replied that he didn't want to, and let him not tell him what to do because it was very annoying. Suddenly, the boys looked at him, not realizing if he really wanted to tell them no. Oh my God, had he gotten so cocky? The young man thought about hugging that kid, not saying let him stay awake. It would be okay. The boy said he was really scared because he didn't want them to make him do anything Simon didn't like. If he doesn't like it either, then let him get his ass kicked. The boy replied, "Hell, if he looks so simple, they'll do whatever they want to him." The kid had to stand up for himself and hit the offender right on the glasses, causing them to come off. After that, he told him to get off his back. The boy took a closer look at what he was doing and realized that the guy had already gotten too naked. "So you had to pick up the glasses while the other guys laughed and said, 'Look at this fool's glasses. Teenagers look so weird.'" The kid didn't want to do something like that, but the guy forced him to. So he thought of telling him to forgive him because he didn't want to so badly. Whereupon the boy put on his native glasses and said he was out of line, which means he should be punished. The kid realized he should hit this guy as hard as he could, and the guy rocked in pain. The blow was actually very hard. The guy told him, "Be thankful he took pity on him, or I'd have knocked him out on the spot. So I'm just throwing warning punches." The girl couldn't stand it, and hitting the guy from behind, told him to stop immediately. She said to him, "Come on, hit him back. She hit him too, right?" To which he was surprised. "Headman, why did she do that?" The girl continued, "Why is he always bothering everyone?" Suddenly, someone came up to the boy and told him to stop. Otherwise, the teacher would come, and there would be big trouble. To which the boy asked, "Is it really him coming?" Simon laughed loudly and said, "What a shame, after all. This kid overreacted and was beaten up by the head man." How low! The boy wondered what was even going on, and why he felt like he was being watched by the one he hated the most. And he'd been right. The lighter who wanted to do more than just sit down and talk had finally arrived. Once the boy came to this place, he couldn't understand what was even going on. All the classmates were horrified, and the head teacher was very much agitated by what was happening. Turning around, the kid was able to see that the beaten guy was badly hurt. The boy asked Gene how he was feeling, to which he only replied, "Yes, it will pass, please." The girl said to the guy, "Sit back in your seat, because he said you don't feel well, didn't he?" The boy stood still, silently looking around and not realizing what was going on. Walking a little further, some were very much agitated as Simon watched him, clearly wanting to do something bad again. The boy decided to turn to his abuser. "What a resilient dog. He beat him so badly and he didn't get a scratch on him." The boy replied, "Idiot. Ignore him and take care of Gene now or he'll get him rolled." The boy sat back in his seat, disturbed by recent events. The young man was in such a state because he was hungry. He had eaten before, of course, but he was still hungry as a dog. He thought about it, remembering what had happened. Perhaps he can't believe he would feel this way about hunger. It's a strange feeling for him. Leiter suddenly noticed someone paying attention to him and said something. The kid asked him if he knew what Gene had just been hit for. The boy slapped the table and realized, damn, just like his yesterday. So he really did want to feed him bad bread? Well, it can't be helped. The kid gathered his thoughts and decided to commit to the plan, though he didn't know until the end if he could eat with such oddities. The kid stood up from behind his desk, and Simon noticed it, not realizing what he was up to. The kid decided to go straight to Simon and ask him for something first. Simon looked at the boy with a look on his face as if he wanted to kill him, though he didn't quite understand what he wanted to do. Was it revenge for last night? So he asked the kid why he had come to him. Did he really want to do something about yesterday? The boy hesitated, but then said he would eat that spoiled bun. He stated to Simon that they would forget about yesterday and that would be the end of it. He was surprised, not realizing the guy was saying such a thing. Would he really accept that he was just going to submit to him? The kid bit into a sandwich made of the most unpalatable dough that was spoiled and moldy. The other guys were shocked and said, "That's just awful, he's eating it after all. How can he not be disgusted by the smell?" The smell of it makes us nauseous. The kid realized, heck, make fun of me, because it really isn't tasty. They went on to say that he must not have brought diapers with him. It was all sad, but the kid didn't give up, realizing that Gene would still give in to the pressure. That's why he should be grateful, because the kid will act like an adult and do it for him. And so he ate this unusual bun. It was as if his whole body was rejoicing with every bite he ate, even though this substance had been sitting there for a very long time. The boy thought this bread tasted just fucking delicious. He immediately started laughing and saying, "Oh shit, let's really forget about what happened. That's so funny." Though really he was joking aside as he had some question. Did the kid really think he was his equal? Then Simon shouted, "He's completely off his rocker if you think such nonsense." He decided it would be more appropriate to hit the kid and declared, "He doesn't understand at all what's going on. Now he will remind him with punches." All the people watched it and realized that it would be dangerous if he continued. Eventually, someone would get very sick. The guys were like, "That Simon surprises us. He really makes the school day interesting. That's so cool." The kid suddenly realized that something else was important right now. That Lightyear is a real asshole. He just managed to block Simon's blows despite the fact that he attacked unexpectedly. All the guys were very surprised to see Lighter blocking and intercepting the kick. It was unthinkable. So now he's going to get into a fight. The boy looked at that guy with one eye and realized that he was actually able to stop the punch. That was awesome. Strangely, he didn't even move his hand. It was like it was alive and moving on its own. That's what's so amazing about Lightyear. The boy looked at it and didn't understand how he had even thought of it. It was unthinkably strange. Afterward, Simon immediately let go of the guy's hand and said it was disgusting of him. Taking a closer look, the boy saw that Lighter's hand had changed slightly and was heavily imprinted from the impact, making it look very strange. The kid noticed it right away and realized he should hide it, or it would be really weird. As soon as the boy covered his hand, Simon noticed it, and wanting to be sure of what he saw, asked the boy what was wrong with his hand. He motioned for the guy to come closer to look at her. The young man realized, "Damn, this can't be happening!" He immediately replied that he didn't want to go near it, and while saying that, he thought he had to get out of here faster. Suddenly, friends wanted to approach the guy and started asking what was wrong with him. What can he hide from them? Let him show his hand and it'll all be over. A piece of idiot like him shouldn't be hiding anything from them, right? Just then, the boy took the boy's hand, and the boy didn't expect him to think of doing such a thing. The guy said, "Unclench your fist and he'll just take a look, that's all." They all started picking on him, and he didn't know what to do. If he opened his hand, they could see that there was something wrong with him, and they would call him weird. At the same moment, some guy walked into the classroom and said, "They are the ultimate chokers." The boy turned to them and said with a smile that he liked it here very much. He wondered why they were frozen and frightened. Was it him? When he approached one of them, the boy said that he saw Jun himself in front of him. Doesn't he know that pigs are forbidden to come here? The boy immediately replied that he would have to make his way into their stable, for they didn't even have anything to eat anyway, so it couldn't be helped. But June started laughing at him. The guy walked over to Simon and asked him something because the guy was suddenly paying attention to him and didn't fully understand what he wanted from him. June immediately replied that Jasker was going back to school, so everyone should be ready for that. The boy's mood immediately changed, and he replied in surprise that it was so quiet and strange that the jerk wasn't here because he had been suspended. The guy was talking about how he knew about Jasker's conflict with the homunculus guys over what he got from them. What is important, the guys beaten up by Jasker filed a police report, and the case almost ended up in jail for him. What's odd is that during his probation, Jasker snapped again and visited them. The kid realized that he didn't like the psycho, but he recognized that there was something cool about him, some budding of something. He immediately wondered if Jasker had some twisted opinions about people, really. John said that in any case, if Jasker refused to play, everyone else would be responsible. The kid knew right away. Fuck! What am I supposed to do? The boy began to taunt Jun with slight body movements, telling him to stop messing with their underachievers and be as kind to them as he was. Plus, this kid looks kind of sad, really. The guy thought to ask the boy how much weight he'd put on in that time. Or it just stretches, it's funny enough. All of this is cool, of course, but damn, it makes him angry. The rest of us don't even pay attention. The kid realizes that it's a good thing he doesn't care about those three anymore. It's just a great feeling. It's even better not to have anything to do with them at all. The boy at this point thought it was worth it to make sure Jasker didn't touch him, since it was already pissing him off, really. Also, as soon as the kid put his hand up, it started to gradually heal on its own. The boy was very much surprised and thought, what the hell? If someone sees it, what will happen to him for that? The kid immediately realized, oh shit, his hand. What kind of asshole would think to do such a thing? At one point, a girl walked into the classroom and asked the guy if he had done something wrong again. The guys were talking about how that asshole was at it again. The kid was surprised. What? How does he extend his fist? No, but it looks weird. June thought he should teach the jerk a lesson by saying, did he really think he could match me in strength? Just as the boy closed his eyes and tried to do anything to keep June from attacking him, someone yelled for him to stop. The kid didn't understand what had even happened, and Simon just stared at them, not understanding what they wanted to do to each other. The boys looked at each other and could not understand what had happened and why he had suddenly forbidden them to fight. They asked him why he had done it at all. The boy looked at them and thought, are they stupid or what? Was Jun crazy enough to fight for nothing? More importantly, Jun wanted to touch someone in his class without his permission. How is that even possible? The kid stood still and checked the time on his phone's camera, wondering when these assholes would even show up. The young man said it was the lamest minutes of his life, to which his friend replied that those guys were on their way. That same Jasker had brought along 2 more idiots who would apparently keep an eye on him. The guy walked up to his friends and said, bro, he's finally here. He missed you so much. He's looking as cool as ever. To which the guy replied, yeah, I know. He's a jerk, of course. The boy asked where Samsa and Ivan were. Jasker said that everyone had already gathered and was only waiting for him. In that case, okay. Let him keep his eyes open. He'll see what he's been taught. Let him stop them before the end, he added. Soon all of this happened, and the guys started to move on. The guy walked on, realizing that things were about to get pretty rough. All the guys were standing in their seats and saw this stiff type come to them. He realized it was the same worms. He hadn't seen them in a long time. And what? Someone would get it again? All the guys were just waiting for his quarantine to finally end. The boy came back next and told everyone that he had finally felt fresh air. It's so good. School was the best place he had ever been. The guys were standing near him and talking about the fact that none other than the dealer himself had come to see them. That was commendable enough. He just laughed and replied that all restrictions were lifted and it was time to get back to work. He thought he should show him something, talking about if he was interested in one of these. The guy looked at it and decided to ask, "This is a Galaxy S2 phone, right?" The young man realized that he probably wanted to go to the other world. But the guy said that he could have brought something more decent, because it looked vaguely familiar. The guys looked at him and realized that these guys were obviously dangerous, since they were acting like this with the rest of the school. The guy was telling him to throw this garbage away and he'd find something more specific and cooler. The guys were looking at one of the tough guy's friends and decided to tell him that he had finally arrived. They wondered how his brother was doing in places like this. Just then, someone turned to Simon, asking him how he was doing, after which he immediately grabbed someone by the hair, talking about how it's not nice. You should say hello, actually. The boy stood still and realized that these guys didn't even think about the fact that he was waiting for them to be healed, and he was meeting him like this. Just then, the kid turned him around and asked him if he'd lost his way, if he was so eager. Suddenly, someone took his hand. It was his brother telling him to stop. It was pointless. Besides, they came here for something else entirely. After all, no matter how he wants to rag on the boss later, it will be extremely dangerous. They all calmed down and thought to say, "Okay, that's exactly how it's all pretty good." The guy took a closer look at Simon and immediately realized that it wasn't fun to hit someone who wasn't shaking with fear. This could be the worst thing he'd ever seen, maybe. He walked up to the guy and told him if they were ready for the game. Simon replied that he should have been warned earlier, that's all. It's no longer easy to find players out there who are willing to fight to the fullest. The guy talked about not slowing down and massaging his shoulders faster. Plus, he realizes it's going to be the same lighter who goes first. Let him get ready, nerd. See, he's going to hit him pretty hard. The kid realized that you only had to look at his face to see what a funny kid he was after all. The young man suddenly asked who the opponent was. Do they mean him? They don't, and besides, of course, he could back away, and it wouldn't be him fighting. The boy just tried to cower in a corner and not give up anything. He realized that this was going to be too brutal a fight. The kid took a closer look at the guy and asked his friend if this was the same lighter. He turned around suddenly and still thought to ask if the man had decided to make fun of him and take on such a real nerd. If anything, he wouldn't advise him to make fun of him. The young man realized that no matter how, he would just have to endure this match. That was the end of it. Oh, and besides, he'd thought it over while he was still in the bathroom, realizing that he should do it all. He can't do it, but he doesn't even know if he can fight at all. Also, importantly, he can't even fight. He'll just get beaten up in front of everyone, that's all. He thought about telling the guys. One of the guys thought it was worth saying something to him. Did he really want that shame like Gina? He doubted his own words. The guys kept talking about how they would show everyone videos of him getting beaten up, all snotty, or being fed food in the parallel of his first grade class. Is that normal? Oh, and besides, does he really want to be used as a punching bag every day? Or does he want to experience this for the next 3 years? Every day. The kid at this point was thinking about how these guys are even worse. Simon thought it was worth having a one-on-one conversation with the guy, talking about how he was nothing, the real deal. And when he meets his fist, he'll just drop almost dead. That's the feeling he'll have to show mercy and just go fight. Plus, importantly, if he wins this battle, he'll delete all the videos and forget about yesterday. The kid just asked that he just do one battle, one game. Let him play just one game. The boy stood still and realized why he had done it. How a fool he had agreed to something like this. He really doesn't know how to fight or anything like that. But suddenly he also reached the same realization that there was nothing left to do but win. Or maybe just get hit and fall to the ground, thus ending the battle. The kid asked the guy if this smartphone was in good condition or not. He said about 200,000 won in this box. He decided to tell me it was only 200 for the model. What kind of price is that? He replied that if he really thought it would be easy to sell the stolen goods, if he was so sure, let him take them and do it himself. The kid said okay, he's taking it anyway. After which he immediately turned around and talked about betting everything on Fatty. The guy immediately said, "Wow, those are bets, and crappy ones at that. Don't they think it's going to be okay?" Though realized he could already hear how those whiskeys of disappointment would be. So anyway, it's probably time to order a coffin. Simon immediately asked how much money they even had there. The answer was that they said they had about 80 grand on them right now, and he had 70. Why? The kid just left everything simply in place for now, thinking about the fact that this is how he's going to fight in the first place, since there will be big bets placed on him probably. The guy immediately said, "Okay, let them give all their money right away too." They weren't all very happy about it, of course, but the one said, "Okay, let's do it all please. Don't let them drag their feet." Joser was telling the guy there that he was finished as he wouldn't even survive 2 minutes. The guy thought about the fact that the kid had also told him to remember not to hit the back of the head. The guy immediately said he wasn't going to do it. The kid also told him to remember that the tip of the elbow doesn't count either. The boy also told him to remember that the tip of the elbow doesn't count either. The young man prepared himself and understood the need for attention, and then immediately shouted that they had started. The young man realized that the one had somehow already started attacking him too quickly. The guy started rushing forward very fast, and at that moment the boy wondered if he would even survive such a blow. Yes, and on top of that he realized that he was very scared to stand in one place, but he was also scared to just move. Plus, no matter how hard he tried, he felt like he was going to die from just one hit. Immediately he, not with his instincts, but with the instincts of that very creature, decided to protect this master, and also thought about the fact that he didn't want to be beaten to death. People who looked at it realized that it was just something with something, from the looks of it, since just now someone had such great speed and it's so good it was something with something. The thing is, the kid thought, it was worth it to take quick strokes to make one really big hole in the guy. Simon watched it and couldn't think the boy could do such a thing. He couldn't even believe it. The young man, opening his eyes, also couldn't realize what he had just done, although he realized that he had done it, and no one else had. When he took a closer look, he could see that he had just beaten the guy up. See, he was lying on the ground. Looking at his hands, he couldn't understand how he was able to take someone down with one punch. After this event, he realized that he couldn't give up so easily after all, right? That guy stood up and said, "Wow, he didn't expect a nerd like him to pull off such a great punch." The bully was actually quite surprised at what had just happened. He thought about the fact that he was going to hit a couple of times and call it a day. But I don't think it's going to be that easy. I mean, it would be too hard. But in that case, okay, it's even better, because they'll make everything beautiful. The young man also tuned in and realized that maybe he could even win if he gathered his thoughts. At the same moment, the people just fell silent, for they couldn't believe that this battle could be so epic, since they never thought a nerd could beat someone like this person who was in a completely different class. The kid was beating the guy as hard as he could, realizing that he would need a win, after all. They had bets on him, after all. The young man realized that now it will not be fun, and besides, this is all quite interesting happening. The boy took a closer look at this battle and realized that maybe it wasn't such a bad thing that he was able to learn such techniques without him knowing. Though, what made him doubt his own words was that he didn't know what to do if someone tried to hit him again. He didn't even realize how it happened. The young man just leaned back as this pig just hit him really hard. All the other guys were looking at it, and the dealer was just laughing, talking about how this kid moves faster and better than he looks at first glance. It was even intriguing. The kid just couldn't understand why he didn't do anything to that guy. He was even beginning to wonder a bit if indeed he really hadn't hit it. The kid looked at his unusual skills and just didn't think he could really do such a thing. He even considered for a second that his opponent could see right through him. He can't avoid his blows, though he can block them without question. And who can? Even if he puts up a block, it doesn't hurt him at all. It's probably just the effect of whatever he has in his system. The kid immediately turned to that guy, making him instantly surprised at what was happening. Laster thought to ask the guy why he was standing still and doing nothing at all. Maybe something happened? Yeah, besides, he thought, maybe he should ask if he could hit him now. He got very angry about it and said he was talking nonsense. It's just a bunch of nonsense. The boy decided to hit the one again to keep him relaxed, to which he realized that it was too much and hurt too much. The dealer also added that, wow, just let him watch this fight, just like in cybersports. It's just something with something. And most importantly, he's having a lot of fun doing it. And besides, tonight's match is something unprecedented. It rarely happens in the ring. The boy swung and immediately hit with all his might, realizing that he had become much stronger than he had thought before. Apparently, it was all because he believed in himself, and at the same moment he began to enjoy this fight, realizing that he had just gotten the guy. after which he immediately decided to swing in and take those couple or 300 blows so that he wouldn't relax in any way. The kid thought to himself, "What the hell?" His fist even hurt a little as he punched him, though that one's face looked just as creepy as his own body sometimes did. The boy immediately went over to the guy and told the guy to get it. As soon as he thought of hitting this guy, he immediately dodged the blow and just waited for the moment. The boy struck out with his fist, though he couldn't understand why he missed. Was the boy so much faster that he couldn't even catch up with him? The guy thought it was worth using a backhand grab, since the opponent was already too serious since he couldn't fight any other way. John asked the boy why a scum like him thought he was the winner. And at the same moment, the boy began to choke a little, for he realized that he was choking him too hard. Slowly, the guy even started to faint, realizing that the whole nation was cheering for him, telling him to go ahead and tear it up, because they had all bet money on him. They were all telling the guy he was a jerk for losing. What a shame it was, though. The kid fell straight to the ground, realizing that this was apparently already too much for him. The young man sat still and thought, how could it be? He had almost won after all. But nothing could be that easy, apparently. The boy walked up to him and decided to tell him that he was interested in seeing it. Sure, it disappointed him, but he fought better than he thought he would, even though he lost. The kid turned to him and said he was crucifying himself in front of him in the first place. He'd just blown all their money they'd bet on this brat. He'd better move on. The kid immediately took notice of him and said what the heck, since he may have blown it, but he did good in general. At one point, they turned their attention to him and asked, "He's going to give them their money back, right?" The young man looked at them, not sure what they were even talking about. Why should he bring them back? He'd promised he wouldn't touch him again. The lad immediately decided to address him, saying that hadn't he forgotten, for he had promised in case he won, hadn't he? So there already, if he even paid, he would even dare to defend him from everyone. Well, anyway, I'll see you tomorrow, kid, he thought, saying goodbye to him. The boy sat still and just didn't think things could turn out this way, though he realized that the timing could be different, and so he should be more careful next time. How suddenly he decided to go back to class after all, when everyone had left, thinking he had something unusual to do. And the most unusual thing is just to come to the classroom and get his own briefcase because he left it in a place like this. As soon as he took a closer look at another place, he thought, this just can't be it. The guy somehow managed to find Simon sitting right next to him, and it was weird as hell. He considered sitting down in his seat and thinking about how he even felt about it. The young man crouched there, thinking that maybe there really was something extraordinarily cool about being a leader. Except he realizes that somehow these fools are always like this. He thought, why don't they just shut up and finally get on with their normal lives? For some reason, the boy was getting angry, and he didn't know why he was doing it. Thinking, what the hell, a puppy brat of some kind. Oh, and besides, the experimentation block is what made him so powerful. The guy said that yes, he decided to take it as a subject for a research paper, that's all. The professor also said that then, why don't he take a good look at it up close? He'll give him a safety card, can pass and study in this place. He thinks he'll be fine.
Pet the cat.